I heard you want to become an Australian citizen. Before you venture into this, let me tell you my story so you can save a lot of time and money by not doing the mistakes I made. I really wish somebody sent me this video 10 years ago. It would have saved me so much time and a roller coaster of emotion. Imagine during COVID, we were all locked down here. Unless you were working remotely, most of the places closed down, restaurants included. Some were doing takeaway, but you could not work. You had to wear a mask everywhere. There were restrictions on how many people could be in a restaurant. A lot of people closed their business and a lot of businesses went bankrupt. And nobody could leave Western Australia. It was easier to go from Sydney to Canada than from Perth to Sydney. Think about that. And if you were Australian, you could not leave. I have a friend that was Brazilian. Father died in Brazil and he couldn't go visit him. I had a chef I was working with. The wife went a few weeks before COVID hit and the borders closed. He went to South Korea. He was pregnant, she gave birth to a baby and she tried to come back and she couldn't. He was under a sponsor. He was not a resident, he was not a citizen yet. But the baby was born in Korea and for 2 years she was not able to come back. So the only ways he was able to see his child was through a screen and Skype. You have one passport, you can do shit because the government is saying no, these are the rules. You have 2 passports now. You can write to your government and say Australia is holding me hostage. I want to come back home. Now the Italian government will put pressure on the Australian government and say let him out, otherwise we'll apply some fines. And now just because you are holding 2 passports, you are able to leave the country while nobody else can. So apart from taxation, this is the key for the gate. That's why I say to everybody, get a second passport because you never know where the world is heading. And unless you're a billionaire, a lot of influence and power on others, you need this kind of keys. Also, if you have a business, the average taxation in my country for a business is 69%. And here, depending on the bracket, is 35% onwards, so different things. For Italian passport, you're allowed to go anywhere in Europe, studying, buy a house, apart from, well, England and a few other places. And if you have a passport in Australia, you can go to New Zealand and go and live there. So if one day you want to go live in Queenstown or Wellington again, you can. You don't need to apply for any visa. Just show up at the airport, that's it. There are few things you need to do if you want to become an Australian citizen. The first thing, the moment you set your mind to become an Australian citizen, is to get a migration agent. Sure, you can do everything by yourself, but if you do a mistake, it might cost you years of your life, like it happened to me. Let me start from the beginning. I came here with my ex-girlfriend the 29th of September 2011. One day I was given the opportunity to talk with somebody that was living in Sydney with a boyfriend. We had a Skype call. She told me all these amazing things about Australia and I made my mind to book a flight and come here. The first thing I did was to buy a book called Willing Workers on Organic Farm. And basically it gives you all the list of all the places in Australia divided by regions where you can work in exchange of your 88 days that you will need to apply for a second working holiday visa. So we looked through the map together, my girlfriend and we decided to go in a place called Mullumbimby, inland from Byron Bay. The place itself was amazing. We spent 3 months there. We were raising kittens and puppies, white shepherds, 13 of them, and we were cleaning houses. We were in the middle of nature. There was this house built on a cliff on the bush and it was just spectacular. There was a waterfall. We were running there with the dogs. We were showering in an elevated room of some kind and life was very simple. But then I split with my ex-girlfriend. I came back to Italy. She stayed there to study as a nurse. I came back with my friend. My friend left after 19 days. And all in a sudden, I was by myself. I didn't speak the language very well. When I was first reading books, I was getting migraines because my brain had to process a second language. And I was in Sydney by myself, where I work in a warehouse. And I couldn't find a job. I had in my mind the idea of working as a pizza chef because it was paying good money. But the first time I attempted to go into a kitchen pretending I was a pizza chef, which I did 3 times with my mom in my house. The chef, he was an Indian chef, he told me to get the fuck out of the kitchen, which I argued with and he told me again and I left. And when I came to Perth, I tried again. And there was an Italian guy that after 10 seconds told me, I can see your shit, but I don't speak any English. So you're gonna teach me English and I'm gonna teach you everything I know about doing pizza. We were together working for 6 months and I learned as much as I could, and since then I've been doing pizza and then I slowly learned how to cut with a knife and use pens, and eventually I learned how to be a chef. I stayed in this place called the Cottesville Beach Hotel, and I stayed there for 5 years on and off, working part-time and working full-time. After this place, I went to New Zealand for 1 year because my working holiday visa ran off, and I stayed there for 9 months with some of my friends. We came back to Australia, and the first thing I do is I apply for a student visa. It's a lot of money, they might lead you into permanent residency, but make sure you check with a migration agent because there are shorter ways to get to permanent residency, which I will get into a minute. I studied childcare education, early learning childcare education. I studied that for 2 years. I get certificate 3 and I get a diploma. And with a diploma, I can get sponsored by a childcare. I do my internship at the end of the certificate, and I do another internship at the end of the diploma. The first time was at UWA, which is a fantastic center. The second time was at Murdoch University, the childcare there, and it was another great center, but I prefer UWA. Turns out they don't sponsor. And Murdoch University at the end, they tell me, oh sorry, we don't sponsor anymore. It's gonna be a problem. I said, maybe, probably, but I'm gonna look somewhere else. At the time, I was working in a restaurant and they offered me a sponsor. I worked for the restaurant for 13 months. I work between 50 and 60 hours a week. They pay for 38 hours. That led to another story, which I'm not gonna tell at the camera. But at the end, I left because I completely lost myself. So I lose the 13 months, I sign with James Italian, and I do a visa there for 2 years, which ends in February 2021. I pay everything through a migration agent. I apply for residency, and after around 25 days, the restaurant shuts down because of bankruptcy. So now I lost my job, I lost $10,000, and I had to reapply for another visa. And what I did was not working for 9 months, gathering as much money as I could from friends and family, and at the end reapplying for my visa. There was a chance at the time of sponsoring yourself, and there were 21 professions available, and the list was basically medical professions, engineering, and chef, because they highly needed chef. So I get a qualification, I paid $5,000 some. They come and check that I have all the experience, and I have to gather 5 years worth of payslip, which was a big pain in the ass because I had to call New Zealand, where I worked 7 years before, and I had to find people that now lives in the middle of a farm that still have access to the payslips. So I collect everything, I provide it to the government, and in 1 week after the application they respond to me and they accept the application. After a few weeks they say yes, we accepted it, now the process is ongoing, you have to wait. And after 9 months I get my residency, and it felt like a dream, it felt like a burden dropped from my chest. I never felt so good in 5 years. Those 5 years was the worst emotional roller coaster of my life. I went in and out from depression. I stopped dating regularly. I was casually dating a lot. I stopped hanging out with people. I stopped developing passions. I was what you would call depressed. After everything dropped and I was free from working for anybody, from saying yes chef and biting my tongue, not speaking what I was feeling because of fearing of being fired, not calling sick when I was sick. I sliced my finger with a slicer because my hand slipped, and the day after the 6 stitches I went to work, and for 2 weeks it was infected to the point that it got back together in a weird way. And I was so afraid of losing my sponsor and to get fired that I came back to work. When I was looking for a job as a childcare educator, there was a visa called 187, which I should have applied straight away because it was such an amazing visa. You apply and after 2 years the residency come in, and you're working in a childcare where, okay, you might get sick very often because of the kids at the beginning, but it's not the same pace as a kitchen where you have to stay up till late, you get verbally or physically harassed sometimes, you're breathing canola oil, frying your face, you burn yourself so often, you cut yourself so many times. I missed that opportunity because I didn't plan, and if you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail, right? So a migration agent, if it's a right one, might be your best friend. I have a friend that got into a migration agency with a migration agent called Rebecca Mason. He gave her a lot of money at the time, $13,000-15,000 for the application, for the cost, and turns out that this woman ran away, and he found out because he went looking for his application. He called the government and this is my application number, and the government said this application number doesn't exist. So he started investigating after 2 months of not getting back from them, from the migration company. And turns out that the woman ran in Sri Lanka. She took the money of 80 other customers. Be careful who you sign with. Make sure your migration agent has a lot of experience and some good feedback from many people. The one I chose was called Active Migration. They've been fantastic, always available. I was calling left and right and they helped me through all the process. And going back, I would probably land in Australia and going to somebody like this, because you would save, okay, you spend a lot of money, maybe 10,000, 15,000, but isn't it a good trade if you can save 3 years of your life and maybe $20,000 more? For me, it would. So if I had to go back in time and I had to follow some steps, I would come here, and if I have the slightest idea of wanting to stay, I would check with a migration agent all the options. I would put everything on paper, I would investigate it, and I would think, okay, this doesn't work. This would cost me this much, this would cost me that much, this one would cost me this amount of time. And then I would put everything on a table and see which one works best for me. You have to consider that if you sign with a company, it's a lot of money, but it's a lot of time on that path. Will you get bored? Will you get depressed? I don't know your personality. I thought I was extremely strong, but I broke down. I was young, I was not complaining because of fear not staying here, and now I have what I wanted. But there is a quote I love about past choices and future consequences from Neil Gaiman, from The Sandman, that goes, the price of getting what you want is getting what you once wanted. The choice you make now and all the time you invest, all the energy you put into the bucket, in 2 years you look back and maybe that's not what you really wanted. To be here, I lost 2 girlfriends in a bad way because I wanted to be here. They didn't want to stay here, they didn't want to come here. So I stuck to my choice, but who knows what kind of life would I had if I stayed there. And that's not to say I regret this. I'm saying that there are so many paths, and staying here and invest a lot of time and money and energy, is it worth it for you? I have friends that left and now they have a happy life somewhere else. So consider that it will take a while. The process is you come here, you apply for a sponsor or a de facto relationship, and then once you get your residency, you have to stay here as a resident for at least 1 year and not to leave for more than 3 cumulative months outside of Australia. The moment you apply for citizenship, you have had to be here for at least 4 years and 1 year as a resident. You can get that in 4 years. It took me around 12. I'm a bit slow, what can I say? There are different options to become a resident here and eventually a citizen. The first one, you are very smart. You're studying a very good university, they call you here and you study here and then you go along that path. The second one, you are very smart and very skilled. You have a profession that is very wanted here. So you are an engineer or AI expert, or you are a doctor and so on. You make an application, the application is approved, they fly you here, and all of a sudden you have a visa to stay here. And that leads you to residency and then to citizenship. The other option is to fall in love, hopefully, with somebody, get into a relationship, share a house together, share an account together, and then the government checks you for around 2 years. There are different stages, and if you pass all the stages, you become a resident, and then you can apply for citizenship again. The other option is to go work in a regional area with a skill they need. There is a list called the SOL list, the skill list, that they update every 6 months, I think. And if your profession falls into that list, you can go in a regional area and work there for a certain amount of time, I think 2 or 3 years, and then you can apply for residency. The 187 was a great visa. They removed it because it was regional area skill visa. Perth was a regional area. Now they removed it because it was a bit too easy to get residency. There is a independent skilled visa which I applied with, and chef has been, I think, is still there, one of the professions. So if you fall into one of these 21 professions that have priorities, or any other profession that are in the list, you can apply and sponsor yourself, which means the moment you go on a bridging visa while you're waiting for residency to be approved or denied, you can work for anybody, you can do anything. You don't have restrictions. And then there is the sponsor, where basically you go working for a company, they tell you jump and you have to jump. If you have any fight or any conflict with the owner, with the employer, things can go south very fast. It happened to some of my friends that they were working for a company, for a restaurant, and to one of them, the company sold. They didn't tell him anything. The ABN changes, Chinese people buy the company, and all of a sudden it doesn't have any visa. The second thing that was in place is that if you want to change company but maintain the same profession, so you are a chef and you go working for another restaurant. Now all your 13 months of work, they are erased from paper. And now from what I heard, but please check, is that the months are cumulative and you have to work a total amount of 2 or 3 years to get to the stage where you can apply for residency. But the problem is, if the company goes bankrupt, which you have no control on, you lose your application. So you might have worked 2 years on the spot, apply, and lose all the money and the application and 2 years of your life. These apparently change for the best for the people that are under the application. So if you have the chance, which a migration agent can direct you to, apply for one of these visas, because it will solve many problems. The restriction of the 190, which is the skilled independent visa, where basically you sponsor yourself, is that you have to be for at least 1 year after the application into Western Australia. They usually don't check, just as something to keep in your mind. You have to love the region and you don't have to plan any movement, because maybe when you apply for citizenship, they notice that and they can give you some trouble. The passport. So I applied for citizenship after 1 year that I applied for residency. I was in the country, I left for 2 months, so you don't have to leave for more than 3 cumulative months after residency if you want to apply for citizenship. Otherwise the year resets and you have to spend another 9-10 months into the country before you apply. This passport is the most beautiful passport I've seen. There are kangaroos in the back, there's a small photo at the beginning, there's the sea here, and the paper is just great. This cost me a piece of my soul, not only money or time, but I'm very happy because with this you can go to New Zealand, you can go back to Australia, and it's easier to go to Canada or USA, so it opens many doors. The moment you apply for citizenship, they will ask you some documents, including police check of all the countries you've been, all the addresses again, all the stuff that you have for residency again, so don't throw away the documents that you collected for residency. And you will have to do a test. The test information are on the website of the government. There are 45 pages where they describe everything you need, they give you all the information. All you need to do is read through all these 46-48 pages and do as many tests as you can. I literally tested everything for 2 or 3 days before the exam. I sat down and the woman close to me stands up after 2 minutes and I thought, whoa, that was so fast. Maybe I'm not doing something right. And there are some questions about the colors of the flags, dates, important events, but in 3 or 4 minutes it's done and then you have to wait. And I literally been waiting 5 months since December to the date of my ceremony for the ceremony itself. You can ask for another ceremony or you approve the one you got, and then you 100 people in the same room. The woman is speaking and all of a sudden she interrupts the ceremony and says,
"The second announcement, Lucas and Prini, if you could look out, there's a gift for you just at the end here. There's a gentleman holding some flowers."
Some friends sent me from Italy and from Sydney some flowers, some native flowers with some balloon with written congratulations. Unfortunately, when I was on the stage, the woman close to me, she was missing a hand. My friend is pointing the lens to her and I hear her on my side saying to the mayor or to one of the helpers, "I'm very scared right now. There is somebody pointing the camera to me and I don't know her." So the woman goes to my friend and says, "Do you know her?" "No, I know him," which I was close to her. She said, "Well, she doesn't want you to take photos or videos." So I've been waiting 5 years for this moment and there is no footage of that. Too bad, life had other plans. We are all lined up in different groups. They call many people, so group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, and every group is 10, 15 people. They all lined up, you are given a pamphlet and you have to recite the national anthem. So done that, they say, "Congratulations, you are a citizen." And they give you a limited minted coin with Australian citizen written on it, a keychain, a flag, and a certificate with citizenship on it. And that's it. After that, you can apply for a passport the very same day because they give you a reference for your certificate. The passport itself, it costs $350. It takes 6 weeks to arrive, but you can prioritize it by paying $250 more, which I did because I had to leave. And instead of 6 weeks, it takes around 2 days. It's up to you. Maybe you have to travel, maybe you need it. You know that you can get it in 2 days. After that, they tell you you're done, that's it, shaking hands, walk out, and you are a citizen. If you don't get the passport, you have to keep the certificate and a photo of the certificate of citizenship in a very safe place, because if you lose that, you're not able to get back into Australia. So make sure you save it everywhere, in a USB key, on Google Drive, wherever, but make sure it's stored in a safe place. If you have the passport, I think this is bypassing the certificate, so don't worry about that. It's just a great feeling. I got what I wanted. I have no plans for the future apart from building a business, traveling the world, and my parents don't agree on my choice, but 36, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm very looking forward to use this beautiful blue, and I'm thinking about a new passport to get. Make life a bit more spicy and interesting, to get different taxations. Highly recommend to get a second residency or a second passport, but do your own research and don't be proud like I was. I still remember the day I sat down in front of the manager and I said, I will quit because I took too much in 13 months and I can't take it anymore. And she said, are you sure you know what's happening with the visa? I said, yeah, I'm sure. I wasn't sure. And I lost 13 months of my life that will never come back, so don't do the same mistake. And if you're wondering, for the whole process from beginning to the end, I spent around $35,000. I applied for a sponsor at the beginning with the company, the restaurant where I was working at. They pay for the visa, $10,000 covered. The government accepts. I go to the second restaurant. They pay for the transfer and visa, which is great. So I save another few $1,000s. But when I do the application for residency, I have to pay $10,000 for the visa. Those are gone. The second time when I reapply for a visa, just to be able to work in the country, I pay $7,000. So we are sitting at $18,000. Now I want to sponsor myself. I need to pay $5,500, so we are $22,000. And then I apply for the citizenship application, which is around $550. Once the citizenship is done, I apply for the passport, which is $600. We are sitting around $25,000 maybe. Yeah, easy. And that is given that you don't pay for your first application, which in that case maybe is a bit more. So consider that it will be money. So make sure you're a good saver and make sure you get somebody to help you through everything and that you trust it. Because on top of being money, it's gonna be time as well. So you don't want to go back and forth all the time and wasting years of your life. You're here to have fun and you're here to find the loopholes to live a thriving life. So make sure you follow the right steps, not societal steps, the steps to have a happy life. I hope this video will help at least one person to make the best out of staying here. And if it does, I will be happy that I save you a lot of money and a lot of time. If you have any question, please reach out. I will help anybody that comments and has some questions. I'm not an expert, but I'm sure I can give you some advice and direct you to the right people. Also, when you receive these, they tell you check for any mistake in spelling, because if there is any mistake, and not only in your name but in the typing here, this one is not going to be valid. So if you see any spelling mistakes, make sure you tell them and they will reprint it for you. I have to say, I'm Australian now, and I don't even know the national anthem. Now I can proudly say Yana and mate, because I owned it. Look at this. I was so excited when I got my passport that I went to an Amazon and I bought a passport holder. The first one I bought was huge, so I sent it back. The second one I bought was a water resistant, RFTD protected passport holder, and now I can put both of my passports. It just holds two, so when I get my third one, I will have to buy a new one. Also, don't do like me, don't put both passports in the same case, because if you lose the case, you lose your passports, and then you have to be like Tom Hanks in the terminal, stuck in an airport for a few weeks or months. So I don't recommend it, but I never lose anything, so for me it's a solution that works. Also, I'm a bit OCD and I need to have all my things in places where I remember, and this thing is very practical. Also, when you get to the borders, you can put your hand here, and if there is any conflict with the immigration border, you can slap him in the face with the strength of 2 passports. I'm joking, don't do it, because that's jail time for sure.